Ladies and gentlemen, letting go spiritually is not simply about forgetting or moving on. It's about releasing the grip of emotional and spiritual burdens that no longer serve your divine journey. When we talk about let it go, we are not dismissing pain, betrayal, or loss. We are speaking about choosing freedom over bondage, healing over bitterness, and God's peace over our control. Spiritually, letting go is an act of faith. It is the decision to place your hurt, your questions, your disappointments into the hands of a higher power and trust that what is meant for you will never require you to hold on to something that's breaking you. So many of us carry memories, people, and past events like chains wrapped around our hearts. We think letting go is giving up, but in truth, it's giving over. Giving over to God what is too heavy for you to carry alone. Think of a person walking through life with arms full of baggage. Each bag holds pain, a betrayal, a missed opportunity, a broken dream. As long as they cling to those bags, they cannot receive anything new. Their hands are full. Spiritually, many of us are doing the same. We pray for peace, but we won't release our bitterness. We ask for love, but we cling to past heartbreaks. We desire a new beginning, but we won't let go of what ended. How can you walk into your next chapter if your feet are still planted in the last? There is divine healing in letting go. When you release someone who hurt you, you're not excusing them. You're setting your soul free. When you stop replaying that failure, you're not erasing it. You're choosing growth. When you let go of what didn't work out, you're making room for what will. This is not weakness. This is spiritual maturity. The word reminds us in Isaiah 43:18-19. Don't forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. God cannot do the new in a heart that clings to the old. You must loosen your grip and say, Lord, I trust you. Even when I don't understand, I trust that you are leading me to something better. Real life stories echo this truth. A woman who clung to the pain of abandonment found healing only when she laid her brokenness at the feet of Christ and chose to forgive. A man paralyzed by regret finally found peace when he prayed, God, I surrender my past to you. Heal me, use me. In both cases, it wasn't time that healed them. It was surrender. Letting go is also about identity. So many people tie their worth to relationships, titles, or seasons that have already passed. When those things fall away, they feel lost. But you are not your past. You are not your trauma. You are not what was taken from you. You are a child of God. Your story is still unfolding. Letting go allows you to rediscover who you are through the eyes of faith, not fear. Here is your call to action. Take inventory of your soul. What are you holding on to that God is asking you to release? Who are you keeping in your heart that is preventing your healing? What emotion? What memory? What narrative have you clung to that no longer aligns with your future? Breathe. Speak the word, Lord. Say aloud, I release what I cannot control. I forgive what I cannot change. I trust you with I do not understand. This is where healing begins. This is where peace is born. Let it go. Not into the air, but into the hands of the one who makes all things new. Letting go spiritually is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice of choosing freedom over fear. And the moment you do, you step into the divine flow of healing, wholeness, and resurrection power. Emotional release and healing are essential parts of the human journey, especially when the weight of past experiences threatens to hold us hostage. Let it go isn't just a phrase to brush off pain. It's a deep spiritual command that invites us to release what was never meant to be carried indefinitely. Emotional release is the doorway through which healing enters, and only when we give ourselves permission to feel, confront, and surrender our pain can we truly begin to recover and move forward in freedom. Many people live with buried emotions, anger tucked behind smiles, grief hidden in busy schedules, guilt quietly gnawing away in silence. These unresolved emotions become spiritual blockages, preventing us from experiencing the fullness of peace that God has promised. Holding on to hurt does not protect us, it imprisons us. Letting it go doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It means we no longer allow it to define us. Healing begins when we acknowledge what we feel without shame. The psalmists cried out to God in their distress, not hiding their tears or masking their emotions. David wrote, I am worn out from my groaning. All night long I trod my bed weeping. Psalm 66. There was no pretense in his pain, and because he released it, God met him with healing. The same is true for us when we speak our pain in prayer, when we lay it at the feet of the Lord. We open a sacred space where divine healing can enter. Consider someone who has held bitterness for years, perhaps a betrayal by a loved one or a painful childhood memory. Every time the memory resurfaces, their heart tightens and resentment rises like a tide. But the day they whisper, "God, I want to be free. Help me release this pain," something shifts, the grip loosens. Tears may fall, but those tears are holy. They cleanse the soul. That is emotional release. And in that release, healing begins. Letting go doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, and sometimes we must release the same pain more than once. But every time we choose release, we move a little closer to wholeness. It's like breathing again after holding your breath for too long. The air feels fresher. Life feels lighter. This is not weakness, this is spiritual strength. A healing also requires faith. Faith that your story is not over. Faith that what lies ahead is greater than what lies behind. Faith that the same God who carried you through yesterday's storm is already preparing tomorrow's sunrise. When you let go, you declare, "My trust is in God, not in the wounds of my past." A real healing, deep, lasting healing, doesn't come from ignoring our emotions, but from releasing them into the hands of a loving God who understands. Jesus wept, he mourned, he felt the weight of sorrow. But he also offered peace and restoration. That same restoration is available to you. You don't have to be perfect to begin. You just have to be willing. This is your invitation. Let go. Release the pain, the anger, but the shame. Cry if you must. Pray, write down, speak it aloud. But most importantly, hand it over to God. He will not waste your tears. He will transform them. Emotional release and healing are not signs of defeat. They are acts of courage and faith. They are the pathway to becoming who God created you to be. And once you've tasted that freedom, once you've felt the healing flow of grace, you will never want to go back to carrying what no longer belongs to you. Faith-based surrender is not a passive act of giving up. It is the most powerful decision one can make in the journey toward healing, peace, and spiritual growth. When life becomes overwhelming, when burdens are too heavy, and when control slips through our fingers, the human instinct is often to hold on tighter. But true transformation begins not when we tighten our grip, but when we release our will into the hands of God. Let it go. In the context of faith, it becomes a sacred command to surrender not out of defeat, but in bold trust. To surrender by faith means to believe that God's plan is not only higher than ours, but better. It is the conscious choice to place our pain, fears, regrets, and broken dreams at the feet of a loving Father who sees the whole picture when we only see the pieces. In surrender, we stop striving to fix what only God can heal. We stop chasing what was never ours to keep. And we rest in the divine assurance that what is meant for us will never miss us, and what is not meant for us will only delay our purpose. Many of us are walking around carrying emotional wounds from the past, betrayals, losses, disappointments. We replay events, search for answers, and try to write our own resolutions. But the heart cannot heal while it is still holding. Surrender is the moment you say, "Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you." It is the faith-filled release of control, allowing God to take what you cannot carry anymore. Imagine a woman who was abandoned in a relationship she thought would last forever. For months she held on to the pain, reliving every word, blaming herself, questioning why it happened. Her health suffered, her spirit broke, and she felt lost. Then one day, in her quiet moment of prayer, she said, "God, I surrender this. I can't carry it anymore." She didn't know what healing would look like, but her faith said it was possible. That surrender became her turning point. Surrender doesn't mean we stop caring, it means we stop trying to be the savior. We let God be God, and in doing so, we create room for miracles. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 3:5-6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." This is the essence of faith-based surrender. It is obedience wrapped in trust. It is worship through release. Some may ask, but what if I surrender and nothing changes? The answer is something always changes. You change, your heart softens, your mind quiets, your soul finds rest. Sometimes the situation shifts. Sometimes you are the one who is transformed. But God never ignores a surrendered heart. The very act of laying it down is an act of spiritual warfare. It declares that you believe in something greater than your pain. To let go by faith is not weakness. It is spiritual maturity. It is the recognition that clinging to brokenness only postpones your healing. It's saying, I trust that God's hands are more capable than mine, and they are. So today, if you are burdened, if your heart is weary, if you're holding on to something that's stealing your joy, surrender it. Speak it aloud. Cry if you must. Kneel in prayer. But give it to God. Let go of the need to fix it, understand it, or control it. The God who holds the stars also holds you. He will not drop what you entrust to him. Divine freedom through forgiveness is one of the most powerful gifts a soul can receive and give. When we talk about letting it go, we are not speaking of weakness, denial, or forgetting what has happened. We are speaking about a sacred and courageous decision to break the chains of bitterness, anger, and pain that keep us from the life of peace and purpose God desires for us. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for you. It is the door through which divine freedom flows. Many people walk through life imprisoned by wounds inflicted years ago. Words that cut deep, betrayals that still sting, family wounds that have never healed. These moments left unresolved become spiritual weights. And yet, there is a divine whisper calling out, let it go, forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not saying that what they did was right. It's saying you refuse to let it define or destroy you any longer. Jesus taught us to forgive 70 times 7, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for spiritual survival. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. But when you forgive, when you speak the words and mean them, even through tears, you shift the atmosphere of your soul. You align yourself with heaven. There is a divine power that floods into your life the moment you choose to forgive. Your heart begins to lighten. The resentment loosens its grip. Your mind finds stillness. God's healing enters in ways you didn't know were possible. That is divine freedom. A man once carried bitterness toward his father who had abandoned him as a child. Decades passed and the pain only grew. He blamed his father for every failure, every fear, every broken relationship. But one day, kneeling in prayer, he felt God asking him to release the pain, to forgive. He didn't know how, but he chose to speak it. I forgive you. Tears streamed down his face. Nothing changed with his father, but he changed. Peace came. That is divine freedom. This is not a human process. It's a divine exchange. You give God your anger, and he gives you peace. You give him your wounds, and he gives you wisdom. You give him your sorrow, and he fills you with strength. That is the beauty of forgiveness. It is a miracle in motion. Some wounds may run deep: abuse, betrayal, injustice. God sees it all, and he never asks you to walk the road of forgiveness alone. He walks with you. He strengthens you. His Spirit empowers you to do what your flesh cannot. This is why it's divine freedom. It comes from him, not from you. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes the healthiest, holiest thing you can do is forgive someone from a distance. It's not about allowing toxic behavior to continue. It's about no longer allowing it to control your spirit. You can forgive and still set boundaries. You can forgive and still move on. When you let it go, when you truly forgive, you become free. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. You begin to see people differently. You begin to love yourself differently. You hear God's voice more clearly. You live lighter, walk strong with deeper. You are no longer held hostage by your past. You are free to step into your purpose. So today, hear this: forgiveness is not just a command, it's a gift. It's the path to healing, to clarity, to restoration. Speak it aloud, write the letter, say the prayer, release the name, let God meet you in that sacred place of surrender. Releasing pain with God, just an emotional decision. It's a spiritual journey. Pain is inevitable in this life. We get hurt, disappointed, betrayed, and let down by people we trusted, dreams we built, and expectations we held close to our hearts. But carrying that pain without surrender only invites more suffering. There comes a time when holding on does more damage than letting go. That's when we turn to the one who understands pain better than anyone: God. When you release your pain with God, you are not ignoring it, suppressing it, or pretending that it doesn't exist. You are placing it in divine hands that know how to turn wounds into wisdom, suffering into strength, and tears into testimony. You are saying, God, I can't carry this anymore. Take it, heal it, redeem it. This is not a sign of weakness, it is the very essence of strength. Think about the cross. Jesus did not avoid pain, he embraced it. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. And in that suffering he showed us a path. Pain can lead to purpose when it's placed in God's hands. Your heartbreak, your trauma, your silent battles, all of it becomes sacred material for transformation when surrendered to Him. There's a woman I know who lost her child unexpectedly. The grief almost consumed her. For years she carried guilt, confusion, and anger. She would cry out in the dark asking why. But one night she fell on her knees and said, God, I can't hold this anymore. It's too heavy. That was the turning point. She didn't stop grieving, but she stopped grieving alone. She let God into her pain. And from that day, something changed. Her tears became prayers. Her sorrow became strength. And eventually she began to minister to other grieving mothers. That is the power of releasing pain with God. Sometimes we think we have to fix everything ourselves. We try therapy, books, distraction, achievement. But healing doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. When we release our pain with God, we give up the illusion that we are alone in our struggle. We acknowledge that divine power is greater than human strength, that God sees, hears, and deeply cares. And here's what's beautiful: God is not overwhelmed by your pain. He is not impatient with your process. He is not surprised by your sorrow. He meets you right where you are, whether you're angry, numb, broken, or lost. He listens to your groans when you don't have words. He carries your burden when it becomes too much. He wraps you in grace when guilt tries to shame you. That's who He is. Releasing pain with God requires trust. Trust that even though you don't understand the why, you believe in the who. Trust that even when healing doesn't happen overnight, it is happening deep within. Trust that when you say, let it go, heaven responds with, I've got you. This is your invitation. To stop carrying it alone. To stop pretending it doesn't hurt. To stop replaying the past. Hand it over. Speak it out. Cry it out. Surrender it all. Let your soul breathe again. Letting go doesn't mean you forget. It means you refuse to be bound. You choose healing over hatred, peace over pain, growth over grief. And when you do, you make space for God to move. He will. He always does. Spiritual growth through letting go is one of the most profound and transformative journeys a soul can undertake. In life, we often hold on tightly to people, outcomes, identities, pain, and expectations. We cling to what we think we need, afraid that release will leave us empty. But what if the very act of letting go is what opens the door to our greatest spiritual awakening? Letting go is not about defeat, it's about trust. It's not about giving up, it's about giving in to a higher power, a greater plan, and a deeper truth. The process of spiritual growth begins when we stop resisting what life is trying to teach us. Sometimes our suffering is not in the situation itself, but in our refusal to release it. When you let go, you clear space for healing, for divine guidance, for peace that surpasses all understanding. It's in the surrender that we find strength, because true power is not in control but in connection. Connection to the divine, to our authentic selves, and to a life guided by faith, not fear. Consider the story of someone who faced betrayal from someone they loved deeply. Their first instinct was to hold on to the pain, the anger, the narrative of being wronged. But as weeks turned to months, that pain began to fester. Joy disappeared. Trust evaporated. Spiritually, they were stuck. Then came the moment of surrender. They cried out to God, not with polished words, but with raw honesty. I don't want to feel this anymore. I want to grow, not remain broken. That cry was the beginning of transformation. Slowly, they began to release the bitterness, and in its place grew wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Their spiritual roots deepened, not because the hurt disappeared, but because they chose to let it go and let God fill the space. Letting go also means releasing the need to always be right, the burden of proving ourselves, and the desire to control outcomes. It means acknowledging that we are not the ultimate architect of our lives. God is, and His vision far exceeds our limited view. When we release our grip, we invite divine orchestration to work miracles we could never engineer on our own. This spiritual act of surrender aligns us with a higher frequency of faith. It teaches us patience when we want answers, gratitude when we feel loss, and resilience when life shakes us. In letting go, we stop clinging to the temporary and start embracing the eternal. Spiritual growth through letting go doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily decision to release what no longer serves your soul. Some days it's easy, other days it's a battle. But every time you choose to surrender, you strengthen your spirit, you quiet your ego, you amplify your faith. Letting go allows you to see people not as enemies, but as mirrors. It allows you to see hardship not as punishment, but as purification. It opens your eyes to the truth that growth often comes in uncomfortable packages. So, if you're carrying a burden today, a memory, a relationship, a mistake, a fear, offer it to God, speak it out, write it down, cry it out. Whatever it takes, release it. And then stand back and witness the peace that follows. Not just peace around you, but peace within you. Breaking free from the past is not about denying your history, but about refusing to be imprisoned by it. Every one of us carries memories, some filled with joy, others heavy with pain, betrayal, guilt, or shame. The truth is, we can't rewrite the past. But what we can do is decide whether it continues to define us or whether we rise above it and become something greater through it. Let it go is more than a phrase. It's a spiritual call to release what binds your soul so you can live fully in the present and step boldly into your God-given future. Too many people carry their past like a weight strapped to their back. They replay the same mistakes, the same heartbreaks, the same failures in their minds, believing that what happened then has final authority over who they are now. But the Word of God says something different. Behold, I make all things new. There is divine power in those words. They remind us that healing is not only possible, it is promised to those who believe. The breaking free from the past doesn't mean forgetting what you've been through. It means you no longer allow your wounds to govern your identity. Yes, you were hurt. Yes, you failed. Yes, people let you down or walked away. But that moment doesn't get the fine. God does. And His plans for you are greater than your regrets. Consider someone who was raised in an environment of rejection. Maybe they were constantly told they'd never amount to anything, that they were unworthy of love, or that their dreams were foolish. Years later, they may still hear those voices, even if the people are long gone. But if they choose to believe what God says about them, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that they are chosen, redeemed, and deeply loved, that past begins to lose its power. It's not that the pain didn't happen. It's that it no longer controls their future. You break free by forgiving, even when you weren't given an apology. You break free by speaking truth over yourself when lies echo louder in your head. You break free by saying, I release this, over and over until your spirit believes it. And sometimes breaking free is not a one-time moment, but a daily discipline. There is something sacred about surrender. When you stop wrestling with what you can't change and hand it over to God, a peace begins to enter your life. Not the peace the world gives, but the peace that only comes from the one who holds your heart and your story. That peace brings clarity. It makes room for joy. It silences shame. Letting go of the past allows you to meet who you truly are, not who life tried to convince you to be. It's in that space, between what was and what can be, that your spirit begins to rise. You'll notice your posture changes. Your faith strengthens. Your purpose becomes clearer, because now you're not looking backward. You're moving forward, unshackled, unhindered, unafraid. This is your divine invitation to break free. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now. Speak it, let it go, feel it in your soul. Let the tears come if they must, but let them cleanse, not cripple. You are not your past. You are not what they said. You are not what happened. You are becoming something beautiful, something whole, something reborn. So break free. Trust that what's ahead of you is far more powerful than what's behind you. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. Let it go, and let God write what comes next. Healing through surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is one of the greatest acts of strength a soul can demonstrate. When we hold on tightly to pain, control, and the wounds of our past, we often believe we're protecting ourselves. But in truth, we're only prolonging our suffering. The real power begins the moment we decide to let go and place everything in the hands of God. That is when healing begins, not through struggle, but through surrender. There's something profoundly freeing about saying, God, I can't carry this anymore. Take it from me. Those words may come after months of anxiety, years of heartbreak, or a lifetime of trying to prove your worth. Surrender doesn't always happen in a church pew. Sometimes it happens in your car when you're crying in silence. Sometimes it happens in the middle of the night when you're lying awake, exhausted by the weight you're carrying. That moment, when you whisper through tears, I let it go, is sacred. Because that's where God meets you with his divine healing. We often live with the illusion that healing comes through fixing everything. Fixing the relationship, fixing the reputation, fixing the past. But healing is not about control, it's about release. It's about loosening your grip on what you were never meant to hold in the first place. Your burdens, your shame, your guilt. They were never yours to carry alone. Healing through surrender is the moment you say, Lord, I trust you more than I trust myself. Take, for example, someone who was betrayed by someone they loved deeply. For years, they might carry bitterness, resentment, or questions that will never be answered. That pain becomes a barrier between them and peace. But the moment they surrender that pain, not pretending it didn't hurt, but choosing not to let it define them, that's when healing rushes in. Not always instantly, but deeply, slowly. Surrender is a spiritual posture. It says, I release my need to understand everything. I release my right to revenge. I release my fear of what's next. And in that release you make room for peace. God cannot fill hands that are already clenched with control, but open hands, willing to surrender, become vessels of restoration. Healing through surrender also means accepting that some people won't apologize. Some seasons won't make sense. Some dreams won't be resurrected the way we hoped. But even then, surrender says, I trust you. And that trust is what transforms broken pieces into a beautiful testimony. It is what turns ashes into beauty, mourning into joy, and despair into hope. When you surrender, you're not giving up. You're rising up. You're choosing freedom over fear, faith over force. You're stepping into the fullness of God's grace, which doesn't require you to have it all together. It just requires you to let him in. So if you're tired, weary, and holding on to something that's draining the life out of you, this is your invitation. Let it go, not just in words, but in your spirit. Surrender it to the one who created you, who sees you, and who knows how to heal every wound. You don't have to fix it all. You just have to lay it down. Because healing doesn't come when you control the outcome. It comes when you trust the healer. And the moment you surrender, that's when healing begins.